Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Whatever time you're viewing this, I wish you well. My name is Nathaniel Stephen Muga, and I am in CIST 2612 Computer Forensics. Today, I'd like to discuss cloud technologies and how it relates to forensics, as well as how it affects our lives and just a tad bit of fun history. So, what is cloud computing and cloud technologies? Well, Oxford Dictionary describes it as the practice of using a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to store, manage, and process data, rather than a local server or a personal computer. So essentially, having your data just come to you over the internet rather than you having to download and physically store that information. Now, I just want to take a second to just let that in. Just how magical cloud technology is. For most of human history, humanity was illiterate, it was isolated, and it was very much, it was your tribe only. You only talked to your tribe. And nowadays, we can talk to our entire species over the internet as fast as the speed of light. It's just mind boggling, just the potential of that. So, how did we come up with this miraculous technology? Well, unfortunately, it came from pretty dire situations. Cloud computing, and more specifically for this little piece of history, the history of the internet, founded in the wake of the Cold War. The Cold War was an ideological conflict between the capitalist West, more specifically the United States of America, and the communist East, more specifically the USSR. At the time, the threat of nuclear apocalypse was very much an issue, and the US military realized at the time that they couldn't stop the next generation of Soviet missiles in time due to the fact that the computers that they had couldn't process flight trajectories that quickly. And now this was a massive problem because when you're talking about nuclear weapons, you need to know where they're going to land and how to best neutralize them. So they gave out a, my apologies, the wonders of technologies. They gave out a contract worth $2 million at the time. Nowadays, in 2022 money, that's just under $20 million. They gave that contract to MIT. And this contract would lead to the legendary Project Mac. See, because academia was suffering a similar problem as well. Each college of the time in the United States, at least the ones that were noteworthy, had their own computer systems. However, they were slow and often had a lot of wasted time, leading to a lot of jokes, meaning saying that something like abacus science or slide ruler science was just a worthy field of study than computer science. But as technology progressed, first the operating system, then the idea of time sharing, computers became more and more of a necessity rather than some quirky tool. They just needed that one last final push, which Project Mac ended up being. And the biggest results of Project Mac, in my opinion, was the invention of ARPANET, or the Advanced Research Project Agency Network. This is widely considered the first internet ever made. As you can see in this little diagram over here, It connects various computer systems together from both colleges and military installations, so they could share all that research and all that data easily. So while this is, pardon me, while this is incredible on its own, there were certainly issues with it. The first one being that while, yes, it was nice that you could share information across the country like this, you had to be in the system. You had to be wired in physically. So this greatly reduced how flexible it was to transport information, as you had to be at one of these computers. Now, eventually, telecoms would advance, and we would get to the point where you could have your own individual terminals at your home, but it really wasn't perfect, and you couldn't exactly lug around one of those ginormous computers from the 90s. But the idea was there, and people realized if you can get the first company to get that would have a massive advantage. And in the 1996, executives at the company at Compaq, COMPAQ, would be the first company to really discuss such technology. They discussed a future in which software would be stored in the clouds and be able to be accessed at any terminal. And thus the term cloud computing was born. So the sort of metaphorical arms race was on at that point. And in 1999, the company known as Salesforce.com would be the first ever company to be able to provide applications over the internet. This marked the first software as a service cloud product and the first real commercial cloud on the marketplace. And it was just off to the races at that point, as by 2002, the industry had greatly expanded, allowing for delivery of video, music, other forms of media, as well as just general data processing to be hosted and delivered online. It was a gold rush, and a gold rush that we're still enjoying to this day. So I wanted to take a brief moment and just break down individual cloud services. So the first one I want to discuss is on-premise cloud services. Now, I think of this as sort of a traditional cloud service. It is when a company hosts their own servers from top down. There is no third party involved. And this is the most costly and most difficult to run. However, on the flip side, you have complete control over your data. There's no one that can stop you from accessing your data other than yourself. And for a lot of companies, that control is maybe not necessary, but gives them a great sense of ease. Next off, we have infrastructure as a service. Now, this does most of the heavy lifting, meaning that they manage the servers and they, they physically keep the lights on for the servers. But everything else is on you. You have to install the operating system, you have to install the software to allow that operating system to talk to the server. So it does offer you a great deal of control over the cyber world, but you lose all physical control of your servers. Next off, you have a platform as a service. Now, this is sort of I don't really know how you would describe platform as a service. Sort of a middle child, I guess, is the best way to put it, in my opinion at least. As you get to control the application and the data, but the the operating system that allows you to run that application, you don't get to control, nor do you get to control the physical aspects of the server. You also finally have software as a service, and this is just basically the whole package. It's the application, the servers, the operating system. It's all third party. And so when you're picking out a cloud service, you really have to ask, what is it you're looking for? Are you looking for complete control? Well, that complete control is going to cost you an arm and a leg. Or are you willing to sacrifice that control for ease and cost efficiency? So it's a bit of a trade-off. So in this industry, who are the top players? Well, the first one by far is AWS, or Amazon Web Services. Now, I really like the story of AWS. Pardon. My apologies. I think it's just really funny. So, according to sort of, not legend, but like rumors, it was founded in 2006 when Amazon realized that they had drastically overspent on servers to host its own website. They just looked around one day at this ginormous server farm and asked, well, shoot, what are we going to do with all of this? Now, instead of scrapping the servers or selling the servers, they had the ingenious idea to lease that processing power to individual users or companies who didn't have that infrastructure. And so AWS would become, well, not the first cloud computing service, it was the first cloud computing service that could really handle a ginormous amount of data. And this would give AWS a massive advantage over its competitors, an advantage that it still is taking advantage of today. And at the time of recording, AWS provides over 150 services, ranging from digital storage to hosting, digital marketplace, and e-commerce. It is the current largest provider of infrastructure as a service cloud technologies, providing at least 31% of the cloud market share. It's just ridiculous to get your mind around how much data goes through AWS, and they make bank from it. In 2020, AWS reported a staggering revenue of $45 billion. AWS charges as a sort of pay-as-you-go model, and this becomes the industry standard from here on out, meaning that you only really pay for the data you use. It isn't a subscription model where you just pay like $2,000 a month to Amazon. It's depending on how much you use. And this makes it really accessible to a wide range of people, from just, your personal resume on a website to industry grade web services, as it's relatively fair. And there's a good reason why AWS is perhaps the most well recognized name in cloud computing at the moment. Next up, I'd like to talk about Microsoft Azure. So Azure is definitely a strong runner-up to AWS. It focuses less on individual capacity and more on enterprise services. They're more focused on big corporations. And these people work their butt off. Consistently, every quarter, they publish updates and fixes, for better or for worse. Microsoft has a bad track record of implementing updates that make their service worse, and Azure is by no exception, is certainly no exception. Its main draw is the ability to instantly provide computing resources on demand, as well as being the best in-class hybrid cloud. Now, a hybrid cloud is a combination of two or more computing environments that share data with one another and run a series of uniform series of applications. My apologies. In quarter two of 2022, Zuri reported a revenue of $17 billion. It offers over 600 services, providing basically everything under the sun, and Microsoft support is both beloved and hated. It's beloved because they're probably the best in the industry, but hated as they probably cost the most in the industry. And it's the perfect cloud service for companies who primarily use Microsoft Office suite of applications. So that's Word, that's PowerPoint, that's Sheets. Next off, we have Google Cloud. And Google Cloud is perhaps the largest individual consumer cloud service, meaning that people like me, for example, people who use clouds for their work and for hobbies, I use Google Cloud all the time, and it provides great ease for users to access information and their applications through their Google accounts. It's really favored by sort of freelancers. There's definitely a cool kid vibe to Google Cloud, and it utilizes the standard pay-to-go model like most cloud services. However, it offers basic applications for free. Well, it's not necessarily free. There's a saying that if you don't pay for the good or service, you are the good in service. And Google has a tendency to sell customer data. However, they are generally really consumer friendly and offer hundreds of dollars in startup credits to help developers launch. And their commitment to creating a consumer friendly environment has really pushed the industry to focus on the consumer rather than large faces corporations. So it's good. So as we discussed earlier, there's definitely an issue with the cloud in which, on one hand, someone has to deal with all the headache of managing a company's security, cybersecurity. So yay, you don't have to deal with firewalls and all that. But on the other hand, you have some random professional who doesn't really care about you managing perhaps the most important part of your company. So that's, terrible. And as someone who really appreciates his own personal autonomy, someone else managing my data it gives me the heebie-jeebies. And also there's definite risk of that, since companies like AWS and Microsoft, Google have a vested interest in preventing law enforcement from just walking into their server farms and rummaging through information. It usually takes a while to get information out of these companies, and in something like cybercrime, every second counts, as it's so easy to hide online. Another thing, too, to be worried about is that your servers or your data can be attacked anywhere around the globe. Anywhere. Romania, Ethiopia, China, India, Germany. It doesn't really matter as long as they have connection to the internet. So this creates the headache for cybercrime and for forensics, that they have to travel through various countries, going through various different laws relating to cybercrime. And again, this just constantly takes up time for these criminals to escape. So that's definitely a massive issue with relying on cloud services. That's why it's so vital for you to have your own physical storage so that you control it, you have your eyes on it, and no one can take it away from you. So to wrap this up, I just wanted to say that our world is changing in ways unimaginable even just a few years ago. It's our responsibility as cybercrime professionals, as IT professionals, to stay constantly on alert and well versed in newest technologies and threats. In this interconnected world, we are blessed with the ability to meet and work with people from all over the globe. New ideas and technologies can be shared in a blink of an eye. Cloud services and just the internet in general will usher in an age of convenience and efficiency never before seen in mankind. A world where everyone can put our collective minds together towards a common goal. How truly awe-inspiring is such a prospect? I know I, for one, am eager to move forward on a world built and powered by the cloud. Thank you so very much. Here's resources I used for my project. Thank you, Professor. I really enjoyed this class. I wasn't expecting it to be like this. And it was really nice to see the legal aspect of it, the policy aspect of cyber security. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.